Julien, dark as rich chocolate with proud locks that brushed his collar. And his little brother Davion, warm light brown and full of questions, raced into the library because that's where adventures and answers lived. They slid a heavy book from the shelf, and before they could read the title, the pages glowed and the floor opened into a bright street full of shops, schools, barbers, churches, and people buying and selling with smiles. Then a calm, dignified man in a tidy suit stepped forward and said, "I'm O.W. Gurley." And the boys learned that he was a real black businessman who helped build Greenwood, the place people once called Black Wall Street, because black families there owned banks, stores, newspapers, schools and homes, and kept money circulating in the community to make life better for their neighbours. Gurley showed them how segregation forced black people to build their own towns, and how those towns became proud places of work, art, learning and safety where community money, what people called the black dollar, paid wages, funded schools and built futures. The street dimmed into a map, and Gurley pointed to other places. Seneca Village, once a neighbourhood of black homeowners where part of today's Central Park now stands. Rosewood, a Floridian town that was burned in 1923 and whose families were chased away. And small communities near rivers and future lakes, where people were forced from their land by law, by violence, or by government projects that flooded valleys to build dams. Stories that sometimes end with water over old foundations and questions that historians still study, like the story of Oscarville and Lake Lanier, where local histories, documents and people's memories all have pieces of the truth. Julien and Davion watched scenes unfold like a living map. Greenwood's theatres and banks, then smoke and frightened families during the Tulsa violence of 1921, when mobs destroyed streets of businesses and homes. Seneca Village's peaceful households made to move so city leaders could make a park. Rosewood streets set on fire, and the people who survived hiding for years. Gurley used plain, honest words the boys could understand. Some people were afraid of black success and used violence, dishonest laws, or money rules to take land and businesses away. Sometimes governments used eminent domain or built dams and reservoirs that washed over neighborhoods. Sometimes banks refused loans, and new big stores and corporations later drew customers away from family businesses. So the black dollar left neighborhoods that had once kept money close. He also showed how progress sometimes hurt people who were already made fragile by unfair rules. When segregation ended, many families could go to more places to shop. But the same freedom meant money flowed to national stores and corporations, not back into the small black-owned shops that had been the heart of those towns. So the gains of civil rights were real, but incomplete until policies and investment caught up. Even while explaining loss, Gurley taught the boys about courage. Families rebuilt schools, started newspapers to tell the truth, and kept businesses alive wherever they could. Communities remembered names, songs, and recipes, and later generations worked to mark the places that had been erased and to demand justice and repair. The brothers learned that history is not only about dates, but about people. About the builders who saved every penny, the teachers who taught children to read and vote, and the families who planted gardens and raised money for a bank. They learned that when violence or law or a dam took a town, those were real losses of savings, stories, and homes. And that understanding the truth helps communities ask for change. Gurley showed hopeful scenes too. Museums, memorials, and young people reopening businesses. and he told Julien and Davion that telling these stories is part of healing. Learning names like Greenwood, Seneca Village, Rosewood, and the communities under lakes helps us remember the people who lived, loved, and worked there. The light dimmed and the library returned, the book closing with a soft thump, and the boys burst out of the building, not quiet this time, but shouting with the urgency of truth, "We have to tell the girls!" And they ran toward home to tell their little sisters everything they had seen. How black communities built wealth, how racism and unfair laws, and sometimes violence and displacement took much away. How the black dollar once flowed inside neighborhoods to lift families. And how knowing the real story helps people today rebuild, protect local businesses, and fight for fairness. They skidded to the front door, breathless, ready to pass on history like a torch so their sisters would grow up proud, curious, and ready to help make a future where people's work and money stay in the hands of the people who build their neighborhoods.